You ever look back on a moment and realize it was the exact second your marriage started dying? For me, it was a random Tuesday night. My wife, Claire, had been working late a lot. Big projects, she said. New clients, endless calls. She was ambitious, always wanted to climb the ladder. I believed her. Hell, I supported her. I cooked, I cleaned, I kept the house running so she could chase her dreams. That night, she came home at 11:30 p.m., hair messy, lipstick faded. Sorry, she said, throwing her heels down. Presentation ran over. I hugged her, kissed her cheek, and that's when I noticed it. Her perfume was gone, but there was a smell on her clothes, cologne. Not mine. Something expensive. Sure. Who was in the meeting? I asked casual. She froze half a second too long. The whole team. My boss too. He was stressing us out. She laughed, but it was brittle. I let it slide. Went to bed staring at the ceiling. 2 days later, I came home early. She didn't hear me walk in. She was in the kitchen on speakerphone. I'll never forget it. A man's voice, low, smooth. God, last night was incredible. You drive me insane. Claire laughed. That same brittle laugh. Shut up, someone could hear. That was all I needed. My blood went ice cold. My wife. My boss. I stood in the hallway, fists clenched, heart slamming. For 10 seconds I wanted to storm in, scream, throw her phone against the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I backed up, walked outside, and sat in my car until the rage cooled into something sharper. Because in that moment I realized, if she wanted to fuck her boss, fine. But I was going to fuck both of their lives. The next morning, Claire acted like nothing happened. She kissed me on the cheek, made coffee, and rushed off to another early meeting. I sat there staring at her empty cup, my jaw tight. I knew I hadn't imagined that call. That voice. That tone. My wife wasn't working late, she was fucking her boss. I wanted to smash something, but instead, I pulled out my laptop and started planning. If I confronted her, she'd cry, lie, twist it, maybe even gaslight me into doubting what I heard. No. I needed proof. I needed so much proof that when I finally dropped it, there'd be no room for excuses. That night, while she showered, I went through her phone. Locked, of course. But Claire wasn't as smart as she thought. I'd seen her PIN before. For numbers, easy. I typed them in and the screen lit up like Pandora's box. Messages. Not under her boss's name, obviously. Saved under Kathy HR. Cute. Real fucking cute. I scrolled. My stomach turned with every word. Can't wait to feel you again. God, you were amazing last night. Your husband suspects? And her reply, no. He's clueless. I copied everything. Screenshots, voice memos, even the pictures they thought they had hidden. Saved it all to a secret drive with a name boring enough no one would ever click it. Tax_documents_2021. And as I sat there, hands shaking, scrolling through weeks of betrayal, I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was systematic. Planned. My wife had built an entire double life with this man while I paid the bills, cooked her dinners, and smiled like a fucking idiot. But instead of breaking, something inside me went cold. She thought I was clueless? Fine. Let her think that. I kissed her goodnight when she came out of the shower, forced myself to smile, and whispered, love you. She smiled back, relieved, convinced I was still her safe little backup plan. And I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, already mapping out exactly how I was going to end her world, and his. From that day forward, my life split in two. On the outside I was the same husband I'd always been. The one who cooked dinner, asked about her day, rubbed her shoulders when she complained about stress at work. On the inside, I was cataloging every move, every lie, every late-night meeting she thought I believed. I became an actor in my own marriage, nodding and smiling while rage boiled under the surface. I started tracking her. Not in some dramatic movie way, just quiet. An air tag slipped into her gym bag. Location sharing switched on when she left her laptop unattended. I even synced her Google Calendar to mine. She never noticed. Every client dinner she claimed to have lined up perfectly with the times her boss's calendar was mysteriously blocked off. Cute. Real fucking cute. Meanwhile, I played the supportive husband role so well she didn't suspect a thing. Don't wait up for me, she'd say. I might be late. I'd kiss her on the cheek, smile, and reply, don't work too hard. Then I'd open my phone and watch the little dot on the map move straight to his condo. Sometimes I'd even pour myself a drink and watch her walk inside on the street cam I pulled from Google just to remind myself this wasn't paranoia. It was real. At work I started quietly talking to people who knew her boss. Asking questions without asking questions. How's he doing these days? Still a hotshot. The responses were telling. Some rolled their eyes, others muttered about him being handsy at office parties. Patterns started to form. My wife wasn't his first. She was just the one stupid enough to think she was special. At home, I doubled down on kindness. I cleaned more, cooked her favorite meals, even surprised her with flowers. She looked at me like I was some lovesick puppy desperate to keep her. She didn't realize I was fattening her ego up for the slaughter. And the more comfortable she got, the sloppier she became. Texts without deleting. Calls in the bathroom with the door cracked. Even using our shared credit card to pay for a hotel conference room. I saved it all. By week 4, my folder wasn't just full. It was overflowing. Screenshots, audio recordings, location logs, receipts, a goddamn arsenal of betrayal. And every time I added another piece, I smiled a little more around her. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I was blind. But in reality, I was just waiting. Waiting for the perfect stage. Waiting for the moment when the mask would drop and she'd finally see what I'd been building while she was busy destroying us. And that moment was coming faster than she could imagine. I knew I didn't want some quiet kitchen confrontation where she could cry her way out and promise me the moon. I wanted an audience. I wanted her lies to collapse in front of people who mattered to her, family, friends, coworkers. Somewhere she couldn't run, couldn't spin it, couldn't put a bow on her betrayal. So I started planting seeds. Claire's birthday was coming up and she'd been hinting at throwing a little dinner. Just close friends and family, she said. It'll be fun. I nodded, kissed her forehead and thought, perfect. Behind the scenes, I began organizing everything. I compiled all the evidence into one file: screenshots, texts, audio recordings, hotel receipts. Then I started cutting it together like a presentation. I even added dates, times, little captions, almost like I was making a work portfolio. Except instead of showing off achievements, it was going to show my wife fucking her boss and lying about every second of it. Meanwhile, I stayed sweet. I told her she deserved a big celebration. I offered to handle the technical stuff for the dinner, setting up a projector, music, slideshow of photos from our vacations. She lit up at the idea. "You're amazing," she said, wrapping her arms around me. I smiled, kissed her back and thought, yeah, you'll remember that when the lights go down. The more I gave, the less careful she became. I overheard her one night whispering on the phone, "Don't worry, he's planning some birthday thing for me. He's so clueless." She laughed softly, and my grip on the knife I was chopping vegetables with tightened until my knuckles turned white. At work, I kept digging into her boss. Found out he was married too. With kids. Perfect leverage. I hired a private investigator for a week just to get clear photos. It wasn't cheap, but when I saw those images of my wife slipping into hotels with him, holding his hand like a lovesick teenager, it was worth every cent. The PI even caught them kissing in his car outside the office. That went straight into the slideshow. By now, I had everything. Proof of the affair, proof of misuse of company funds, proof that he wasn't just risking his marriage, he was risking his career. And Claire was too blind, too wrapped up in the thrill, to realize she was building her own gallows. The night before her birthday dinner, I sat at my desk, going through the final cut of the slideshow. The last slide was simple: 2 words in bold white text on a black screen. "Happy birthday, Claire." I leaned back, hit save and whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, everything burns." The night of Claire's birthday, the house looked like a Pinterest ad. Candles, flowers, catered food, all the little touches she insisted on. She was glowing, dressed in the red dress I'd bought her 2 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. I bought the dress she wore to cheat in. Guests filtered in, her sister, some of our closest friends, even a couple of her coworkers. Claire beamed, hugging people, thanking me for being the best husband ever. I just smiled and poured wine. Her boss was there too. Yeah. He had the audacity to show up, smiling that fake corporate smile, shaking my hand like he hadn't been fucking my wife behind my back. His wife couldn't make it, apparently. Convenient. I shook his hand hard enough he winced, then clapped him on the shoulder. "Glad you came," I said. His eyes flicked nervously, but he laughed. He had no idea. Dinner went smoothly. People laughed, glasses clinked, stories were told. Claire kept leaning over, squeezing my hand, kissing my cheek, playing the part of devoted wife for her little audience. I almost admired the performance. Almost. When the cake came out, candles lit, everyone singing, "Happy Birthday," I stood behind her with my hands on her shoulders. She closed her eyes, smiling, soaking it all in. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she'd won. And then it was time. "Before we do gifts," I said, raising my voice just enough to hush the room, "I put together a little slideshow. Just some memories. A look back on the past couple years. Claire gasped and turned to me, eyes shining. You didn't? I smiled. Of course I did. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. The first slides were harmless: vacations, Christmas mornings, goofy selfies. Everyone laughed, clapped, commented. Claire leaned against me, whispering, "You're amazing." Then the screen flickered. A text bubble appeared, "Can't wait to feel you again." Claire's voice from an audio clip, "Don't worry, he's clueless." The room went dead silent. Next slide, hotel receipt. Her name. His name. Date circled in red. Murmur started. Someone gasped. Claire froze, her wine glass trembling in her hand. Her boss's smile collapsed into horror. Then came the photos. Her slipping into his car, kissing him in the driver's seat. Walking hand in hand into a hotel lobby. Laughing like a teenager while he held her waist. The room erupted. Her sister shouted, "Claire? What the fuck?" Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." Her boss tried to stand, mumbling, "This isn't," but his own coworkers were already staring at him like he'd grown horns. And then the final slide, black screen, bold white text. "Happy birthday, Claire." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Claire dropped her glass. It shattered on the floor. I set down the remote, looked at her, and said into the silence, "Make a wish." For a moment it felt like time stopped. Everyone just stared at Claire, then at her boss, then back at me. The only sound was the fizzing of champagne in half-empty glasses. Claire's face went from pale to red to ashen, like she couldn't decide whether to faint or run. Her boss tried to speak, but his voice cracked. This isn't what it looks like." That line. The classic line. The entire room erupted, not in support but in disbelief. One of Claire's co-workers muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Jesus Christ, it's exactly what it looks like." Another whispered to the person beside them, "I knew something was off with those two." Claire turned to me, her eyes wide, glossy with panic. "Please, can we talk in private?" She reached for my arm. I stepped back and the rejection hit her like a slap. Gasps rippled through the room again. Her sister stood up, pointing a finger at her. "You've been lying to all of us." To him. She meant me, of course, but her glare burned holes straight through Claire. The boss tried to salvage something, anything. "Listen, everyone, this is being taken out of context. We've been working closely on projects, late nights." I cut him off, calm, steady, voice loud enough to silence the room. "Late nights in hotels? Late nights in your car? Or late nights when my wife came home smelling like your cologne?" A friend of Claire's actually gasped into her hand. The boss's face twisted, and for the first time he looked like what he really was, a trapped, cornered liar. His phone buzzed on the table. His wife's name flashed across the screen. The timing couldn't have been better. Half the room leaned in, eyes wide. He snatched the phone up, declined the call, shoved it into his pocket. Too late. The damage was done. People exchanged looks. His secret wasn't secret anymore. Claire started crying, babbling, "It's not what you think. He told me he was going to leave his wife. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her boss snapped, "Claire, shut up." And that was the nail in the coffin. She looked at him like he'd slapped her. Her tears dried instantly, replaced by shock and rage. She realized in that second she wasn't his future. She was just his side project. I let the silence hang for a beat, then picked up my glass, raised it slightly, and said, "To honesty." Finally. Some people actually clinked glasses, half in disbelief, half because they didn't know what else to do. The boss muttered something about needing to leave, grabbed his coat, and bolted. No one stopped him. Claire stood frozen, trembling, mascara running down her face. And me? I just sat down, calm as ever, and started eating a slice of cake while everyone stared. Because nothing tastes sweeter than watching two liars choke on the truth. But that was only the beginning. The party didn't recover. People left in awkward waves, whispering, throwing pitying looks my way, disgusted ones at Claire. Her sister stayed behind just long enough to hiss, "You're unbelievable," before slamming the door. Claire collapsed on the couch, sobbing into her hands, mascara streaking like war paint. I didn't comfort her. I poured myself a drink, sat across the room, and let her cry. The next morning the fallout began. Her boss's wife found me before Claire even had the courage to face me. An email, subject line, "I know." She'd already seen the screenshots. Someone at the party must have sent them around. Attached was a photo, her husband's suitcase in the driveway. "Thank you," she wrote. "He's your problem no more." At work, the dominoes toppled. HR called Claire's boss into an emergency meeting. Multiple employees had come forward after seeing the slideshow. Turns out my little presentation was the spark they needed to speak up about years of inappropriate behavior. By Friday, the man was taking a leave of absence. Corporate speak for "we're firing you quietly before this gets worse." And Claire? She tried. Oh, she tried. She begged me to talk. She wrote me long, tear-soaked letters about how she'd made a mistake, how she still loved me, how she wanted to fix things. I listened once. Just once. She said, "I didn't mean to hurt you, I was lonely, he manipulated me." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You weren't manipulated, Claire. You were greedy. You wanted it all. And now you get nothing." I filed for divorce the next Monday. My lawyer smiled when I handed her the evidence folder. "This is thorough," she said, flipping through pages of texts and photos. "She doesn't stand a chance." I almost laughed. Thorough was an understatement. It was airtight. Financially, she was screwed. Because she'd mixed personal and professional with her boss, she was implicated in the investigation. Her promotion? Gone. Reputation? In flames. She went from being the office golden girl to the whispered name in every break room. At home, she tried to play the role of broken wife for a few weeks. Cooking dinner, doing laundry, begging for another chance. But every time I looked at her, all I saw was the slideshow burned into my memory. Her mouth on his in a parking lot. Her texts bragging about me being clueless. There was no going back from that. One night after I'd moved into the guest room, she stood in the doorway and whispered, "You ruined my life." I didn't even look up from my laptop. I just said, "No, Claire. You did." It's funny how quickly people change when the mask is ripped off. A month earlier, Claire was the perfect wife in everyone's eyes, hardworking, loyal, respectable. Now she couldn't even go to brunch with her friends without whispers following her like a shadow. People unfriended her, stopped answering calls. The ones who did pick up only wanted gossip. She hated that more than anything, not just being exposed but being talked about. Her job fell apart even faster than her social life. When her boss was officially terminated, HR called Claire in for questioning. They already had the evidence. Screenshots from me, testimonies from coworkers, even emails where she'd covered for him. By the end of the meeting, she was suspended. A week later, her access card stopped working. She came home that day looking like someone had ripped out her spine. "They let me go," she whispered. I just sipped my coffee and said nothing. Money became an issue almost immediately. That promotion she bragged about? Gone. The savings account she thought she could lean on? Already in my name, thanks to the prep I'd done weeks before. Suddenly, the woman who mocked me for being boring and too careful was begging for stability. And then came the kicker, her family. Her parents called me first. Her parents. "We're so sorry for what she did to you," her mom said. "You didn't deserve any of it." They didn't even defend her. They were ashamed. When Claire found out, she screamed, threw her phone across the room, and accused me of turning everyone against her. I just laughed. "You did that all by yourself." I moved out officially 2 weeks later. Papers were signed, the house put up for sale. She stood in the doorway watching me pack, eyes hollow, makeup smeared. "Do you really hate me that much?" she asked. I looked at her for a long moment, then shook my head. "No, Claire. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything at all anymore." That crushed her more than rage ever could. But I wasn't done. Not yet.